Ever since I first started playing Halo CE back in 2002, I always dreamed of being able to play some of the enemy characters, such as a glorious hunter or even those little grunts. The depth of the universe always led me to imagine many things and ask myself, what if? 15 years later, 4 crazy trickers, Dr. Biz, Mr. Monopoly, Harc the Shark, and Nibre, you'll find their YouTube channel in the video description, found a way to do it without mods, so everyone can do it just by playing. The absolutely crazy trick is called A.U.P, or Arbitrary Unit Possession for short, and that's what we'll be using for this challenge. Can we beat all of Halo 2's campaign playing only as enemies? So we start off with Cairo Station. Since this glitch is co-op only and the armor is a single player only level, there's no need for it. We're going to use one skull, Envy, but it's not required. It's more a matter of comfort and you'll see why later. So we start by moving forward into the mission until there's a boarding ship arriving. We move until those stairs, and once we pass them, it triggers Johnson putting his turret on the ground. As soon as the turret is on the ground, we kill one player, we prevent him from respawning by meleeing, we pinch him by jumping onto the ledge, and once it's done, we can restart the mission. So we start over, we do the same thing, we wait for Johnson to put the turret down, we kill our buddy, but this time we prevent him from respawning just a bit longer by melee jumping. And when we stop melee jumping, voila, he's a grunt. But be careful, we enable the Envy Skull because in this first zone, our human allies will try to kill the grunt player. So to counter this, we will kill the Marines and preoccupy Johnson. Once it's done, we can move forward into the level without much trouble, watching our grunt buddy stroll along with us. And he can also kick the shit out of the elite oppressors, as TekTek would say. But be careful right here, because if the regular player triggers this loading zone, the grunt player will despawn. So make sure the grunt player is the one that triggers it. Once past it, the grunt player can keep busting some elites, or watch his cubby friend sabotage stuff, or even betray you. Thanks, I'm level 0, you ass. So we can go through the level normally, and as you just saw, the Covenants don't shoot at the grunt. We had to be careful in space because apparently the grunt's jump height isn't that great. Also, after the second load zone, by the way, the Marines won't attack the player anymore, but he can still kill them if he wants. In the second part in space, I'm level 0 stuck himself here and could not jump high enough to leave, so I had to give him a leg up so we can avoid reverting to the last checkpoint, which is far, because in some missions when you op, you don't get a lot of checkpoints. But it also could have been because we rushed the mission a bit. But after that, we were able to finish the level normally. This is a good and easy way to start learning how to do this trick. It should be noted that there are also many other ways to use this trick, and many other things you can possess. For example, there's a player merge version where you can merge one player into the other's model. One of the two players is then invulnerable, but stuck in a dead body, which can still lead to some awesome stuff like getting into the hangar room cutscene. The important thing is you become anything from Marina Keys to the turret or even the hidden Warthog. And if you enable some skulls like Feather and Sputnik, you can have fun in some of the cutscene rooms like in the elevator room and do some neat jumps. Let's move on to Outskirts. This time we'll add the Bandana Skull in, because it lets us have plasma grenades at the start, which is not required, but makes things easier, because right at the start we betray the other player by sticking him, and we pinch him inside the Pelican. We restart the mission, betray him twice, which makes him respawn as a cadaver. There we can revert to last checkpoint. We betray him again, but this time we prevent him from respawning and move to the corridor. We wait just for a bit, and then, voila, he's a grunt. We then had to move into the level normally, which I'm not used to because I think I spend way too much time on the routes other than the streets. We still had to be careful at the Marines and Johnson because they were still trying to shoot the grunt player. But besides Johnson's invulnerability and I'm level 0 who decided to team up with some hunters, there was nothing complicated. We then moved forward until the next load zone where we made sure the grunt player triggered it so he wouldn't despawn. We then grabbed some ghosts and rushed into the level. Also something to note, the grunt player can even pick up a rocket launcher, just as grunts can carry fuel rod cannons, but in I'm level 0's hand, it always worries me. So yeah, we just played through the level and we were able to finish it easily. Also, another thing to note is that in this mission, you can pretty easily become an elite, which is cool because the elite player can board ghosts, but his boarding animation will not finish and he'll be stuck there. You can also become a Pelican, not a Pelican's pilot, but the actual ship. And you can also become a Phantom, and the interesting thing is that the Phantom is totally invulnerable, and it allowed speedrunners to break records by minutes. Speaking of Phantom, we'll become one in Metropolis. That'll be our most complex setup yet. We'll need the Bandana Skull to get unlimited nades, Envy to sneak all along the bridge, Pinata to be able to pop grenades out of players, also Feather can help pop the grenades farther away, so we don't pick them up. So we start by driving the two Marines far from the bridge with the Warthog, and then we hop off the Warthog and go there. The other player joins us here against that ledge, and we'll melee him 16 times to pop 16 grenades from him. These 16 grenades create an offset during a setup, which we will need to spawn as the Phantom because the Phantom comes later in the mission. Then we go get the Scorpion. We put it just like that in the corner to create a pinchable spot under it. Once it's okay, the other player jump off the bridge. And once we pinch him, we restart the mission. So now we start the sneaky part while the other player drives the Marines away from the bridge and goes off the Warthog. The enemy skull is definitely useful here because there are 4 ghosts which will bother you and they must not shoot even once. If they do, it'll distort our offset and we won't be able to spawn as the Phantom. So we go into the 6th cable right before the Wraith, and once we're there, the other player jumps off the bridge. When he's dead, we activate our camo and prevent him from respawning by melee jumping while moving forward a bit. And when we do that tricky part right, the other player is now a Phantom. He can fly around in this zone, but invisible barriers will prevent him to go inside the tunnel. So we could say, okay, let's skip the tunnel and teleport into the next load zone. But the problem is that he'll spawn into solid space and won't be able to come back into the level normally. Now the question is, what do we do to get around this? We call Harc for help because he's a wizard. He gets the Warthog, but we could have used the ghost as well. Skips the tunnel and triggered the next load zone to teleport the Phantom there. But then he parks the Hog here and waits for a checkpoint. The Phantom player then goes to the very bottom of the map to despawn. Respawn to the Spartan, but now we have to do a revert grab. The Phantom player prepares to drive the Warthog, and he will press the action button at the exact same time that the other player reverts to the last checkpoint. If successful, the Phantom player will drive the Warthog while still being the Phantom. The cool thing about this is that only the Warthog's colliders are taken into consideration by the game, not the Phantom's ones. So this allows us to go through the tunnel as the Phantom while in the Warthog, and we can continue through the mission normally. Well, weirdly, but still. And after that, we can hop off the Warthog and fly as a normal Phantom. You can go get the Scare Gun to make things even easier. We did some funny stuff like making the regular player boarding into a Pelican. To get the next zone loaded without being stuck into solid space again, the Phantom player will have to put his Phantom ass inside the building like so. And once it's properly done, we load the last part of the mission. We tried to save the Scorpion, but it didn't work that well. And finally, we just had to clean up the Scarab, and that was it. This crazy setup let us complete Metropolis fully while being a Phantom. Okay, let's move on to the Arbiter. We don't need any skulls for this, so we just move forward into the level until the first room. Make sure you go to the other end of the room to trigger the next part. The pinch spot is right here on this ledge on the pillar. We then wait for a precise part of Half-Jaw's speech before we betray our team.
But take heed, your armor system is not as new as ours.
You must stick your friend when Half-Jaw says as ... new. So once pinched, we can restart. Do the same thing all over again, go to the first room, wait for the dialogue, betray our friend, but there we'll have to be clever. We have to prevent our teammate from respawning while enabling our camo so we can move forward into the next room without any shot being fired by the AIs. Because if they do, it'll create an offset like the grenades in Metropolis, but we don't want that. When done properly though, we become a Heretic Grunt. And our small boy can be pretty chill because the enemies won't shoot at him. So it basically becomes a fratricidal slaughter. The Grunt player can barely enable the elevator, but in the elevator he can do some ballerina stuff. How nice! More importantly, outside of the hangar door, there's a soft barrier preventing the regular player from getting too far outside. But that wall doesn't affect the Grunt, so the regular player can kill himself and respawn outside. We didn't try that with the Feather or Sputnik skulls, but you could get some nice launches there. But yeah, then we proceeded into the mission until the Banshees area. Ensure that the regular player gets into the Banshee first to trigger the next part of the mission. And the funny thing here is that the Grunt can pilot a Banshee, but he'll be T-posing in it. He can't shoot and can't lead the Banshee, but it doesn't prevent him from splattering everything. At the end of the level, we couldn't trigger the end cutscene without leaving the Banshee. But as soon as the regular player leaves his Banshee, the cutscene kicks off, and that's another level completed. Let's have a look at the Oracle now. And spoiler alert, it's a run killer. It's also a speedrun killer, by the way. But let's show off some great stuff anyway and explain all of that. Right at the start, we can pinch really easily. We wait for our teammate to be dead, then we restart. We kill our buddy again after the Juggernaut title fades out. Move forward into the level while melee jumping to prevent the respawn, and after a bit, our teammate is an elite flood. So the flood is really messy to handle, because if the regular player comes too close to it, it'll be stuck in this fixed animation and will follow the regular player automatically, and the player who controls it won't be able to do anything against it. But apart from that, there's nothing really complicated. We just have to be careful for him not dying because it doesn't have a shield and is pretty weak. And then we arrive at this cutscene, and here's what happens. The game actually crashes. And when it doesn't, it despawns the player who was possessing the flood. If you paid attention, we can also see that our biped was merged into the cutscene's Arbiter. We tried several times to get the same result, but then we thought maybe it's because we possessed the flood, so let's try being a Heretic elite. To get him, we just apply an offset of 4 to our setup, with Pinata Skull just like we did on Metropolis. The game just keeps crashing though. So out of despair, I asked Harc for some advice. Poor him. He suggested and tried the ball method, which allows him to clip into walls and still survive, and that would have allowed him to go directly into the elevator room while skipping the cutscene. It didn't work because he kept getting stuck in the Heretic leader's room. It might be possible, but it's hard and pretty inconsistent. So with TekTek, we wanted to try the player merge method just to see if we could get something out of it. The issue is that right at the start, when you do that, you get teleported into the wrong room, just before the level. We still divided the player to get one being dead alive, clipped him back into the level, but it was really complicated to pass the elevator room, and we could probably get the same result, a game crash. So this mission is a failure, but it's still pretty cool because you become an elite flood, a Heretic leader, and we could have become the hologram of the Heretic leader. So all in all, it's still a pretty rad level. Anyway, we won't stop here, so we continue with Delta Halo, which is one of the hardest setup to get right. We need to enable Envy, Boom, Feather, Sputnik, and Scarab Skulls. And right at the start, you absolutely must kill all your allies in the first Covey turret before they start shooting. If they shoot too early, end the game and restart to try to get the right RNG. Once you get the right RNG, you need to grenade jump up to the cliff on the side, and as soon as you've killed the other player, you have to prevent him from respawning by melee jumping. We head to the building at the bridge to pinch. If the other player respawns, just kill him there and continue the setup. But you'll have to remember to kill him once before, just in case. We pinch above the door inside the building, then restart the game. We do the same thing, killing everyone before they shoot, then grenade jumping. Remember, we had to kill the other player one time beforehand, and then instead of going to the bridge this time, we go back into the map right before the sniper jackals and let the other player respawn, and now he'll be possessing a jackal. You see through his point of view because for this, I asked Harc to do this horrendous setup for me. You can notice that there's no shield indicator above the radar, and we respawn with a sniper. From there, we can continue through the mission as usual. We can of course activate the bridge, but also rebel against regret. I tried to board a Banshee as a Jackal, and it's technically possible, but sadly it's locked. I forgot at least once that we enabled the Scarab gun. That's a good thing to forget usually. And Harc also forgot we had Boom, which makes grenades way stronger. Like many of the enemies we possess, we have to be careful because we're weak. And for example, you can die pretty easily to a ghost if it just splatters you. But apart from that, we didn't face any major difficulty whatsoever. And I could very gladly assassinate all the Guardians at the end of the level to trigger the end and complete this mission. On to regret. Now we'll get something even cooler, a drone. For that, we just need the Scarab Skull enabled and some speed. Right at the start, we need to kill our teammate and the 2 Marines with one shot. Then we shoot twice for later, and we go pinch under the ramp. Once pinched, we restart, kill our buddy and the Marines again, and this time with the 2 remaining shots we prepared, we kill the first 4 drones before they start shooting. As soon as we've done that, we go back into the corridor while melee jumping, go into the corner to make the door open, and go into the SAS to let our teammate respawn. If done right, he respawns as a drone. But he's not flying. The only consistent way we found to get it to fly was to keep killing the regular player to make it spawn behind the drone. And at some point, it makes the drone fly. From there, he can fly wherever he wants and enjoy the view. We can skip the gondolas and go right onto the next building to get underwater elevator. But after the load zone, the drone will stop flying. It didn't prevent TekTek from exploring as a drone because he realized he could climb the walls like a spider. So we did that, and he insisted we go to the highest point of the map. It let us play with Anniversary's occlusion culling because it uses Classic's occlusion but doesn't match it. Anyway, then we had to go all the way down, and that was boring. But this time around, we could not skip the gondolas. But after that, we arrived at the boss fight. Sadly, the drone cannot board Regret, but we still beat the hell out of him, and this way we completed this mission as a drone. You also robbed the man of his goddamn chair, TekTek. I can't believe you. What the fuck, man? This time on Sacred Icon, we'll have to do a bit more at the start to become a Constructor. We need Bandana, Boom, and Feather Skulls to get it to work. So right at the beginning, we want to kill quickly the first 3 Constructors before they use their beam. Then we throw 1 grenade at the Grunt, 2 more grenades to destroy the Sentinel spawns, and we make sure we don't kill the other 3 Constructors. Then we use a Plasma Grenade to go to our pinch spot at the top of this pillar. Once done, the other player sticks himself, and once pinched, we restart. We do the same setup again with our 6 grenades. Player 2 sticks himself again, and then we have to move forward into the level while melee jumping to prevent him from respawning. That 2 part is trickier than it looks because you have to be careful at the small ledges. Keep going to the mission until you see these 2 small Constructors here. Stop melee jumping. And there it is, our buddy is now a Constructor. From there it's really easy because this small boy can fly around and pretty much rush through the entire level without having to take all the small detours. He can face the first Enforcer in a David against Goliath battle, and if it takes too long he can pick up the carbine here to speed it up. He can activate the platform, but be careful because he has no grip on the platform and must move by himself. And he's also super weak, so he can die crashing into Enforcer's debris, like here. As we didn't get any checkpoint, we had to redo everything, which took us a bit. But eventually, we succeeded, and he crashed again. So about 30 minutes later, we succeeded our setup again, and we started to have fun with weapons like dual-wield SMGs, and even better, the shotgun. A Constructor terrorizing you with a shotgun looks fucking amazing to me. We rushed into the level a bit more carefully, but didn't face any more difficulties along the way. We still wanted to make sure our floods wouldn't get to the Constructor. But in the end we made it. We completed Sacred Icon as a Constructor. We arrive at the very first arbitrary unit possession shown by Mr. Monopoly, the Enforcer on Quarantine Zone. No skull is needed this time. All we need to do is stick our teammate and go pinch into the cave behind us on the left. Once done, we restart, stick our buddy, go as a passenger on the Spectre to trigger our allies to move but leave the Spectre right away. And we prevent our teammate from respawning until the Enforcer arrives. Once it's here, we let our teammate respawn. He'll die most of the time, but with a bit of luck he'll survive, and from there you can fly anywhere you want. Like to the top of this big building thing. The foreseen issue we knew we would encounter on this level is the tunnel's entrance right here. Because the Enforcer can't enter it, and if we try to load the next zone with the regular player, it will despawn the Enforcer player. So no worries, we know how to let the Enforcer enter here, with the revert grab method. We take 1 ghost and kill the ally who's driving it. We kill the Enforcer and we synchronize a revert to the last checkpoint with the grab. And when it works, we've got the Enforcer driving a ghost. If you haven't seen this video, Halo 2 is Weird by some filthy casuals, go check it out and see what they do with this. So now we can go through the narrow hallway and let the Enforcer load the next zone so he doesn't get teleported. Driving the ghost while being the big boy is not that easy, and the center of gravity tends to be really weird compared to how we are used to it. So be careful not to fall over, but if you do, it's okay because unlike the actual player, the Enforcer is not forced to leave the ghost. You'll just have to find a way to put it back up. Until the cutscene, everything works just fine. but after the cutscene, the enforcers despawned, and the other player will respawn normally, and we can't do much about it from what we know currently. So that's our second run killer, but hey, he went pretty far in a pretty awesome way, I'm not gonna lie. And here it is, the mission that probably most frustrated me. Gravemind. The speedrun fucking sucks. Oh wait, wrong video. The level starts pretty much like Delta Halo, so we'll have to use Envy and Scarab Skulls to kill the enemies before they shoot. So right at the start, we activate our camo, then proceed to kill quickly the 2 brutes. If their rifles shoot when they fall on the ground, he must restart. If not, kill the 2 grunts before they shoot. When you're good, you can kill the other player and go pinching in the corner of one of the corridors. The player who's pinching must keep moving forward into the corner, so player 2 has to be the leader of this session if you play online co-op. After restart, we redo the setup, but we prevent the other player to respawn until the next wave of enemies spawn. When it does, we let our buddy respawn, and he's a brute. The issue is, Cortana won't open the door because she thinks there's still an enemy in the room. We then thought, okay, Mr. Monopoly showed how to become Cortana, and she may not be an enemy, but that's still pretty cool. Plus, if we're being a bit hypocritical, we could say she's not an enemy, just yet. So anyway, we start with the same setup as before, but then we proceed to kill every wave of enemies without them shooting even once. We kill the other player, and we walk to the door to let Cortana spawn. Once she's here, we let the other player respawn, and here he is as Cortana. But we face yet another issue. She can't move, and most importantly, she despawns automatically after a few seconds. Even worse, for some reason, on this level, we can't become anything that spawns after Cortana. I want to keep it there, so I found how to become Cortana but in the next room. For that, you need an offset of 24 objects, and you need to proceed into the next room without being seen by any of the enemies. At the other end, when Cortana appears, the other player can be her again, and there's an improvement. She doesn't despawn automatically. Yet, she does despawn as soon as the other player moves a bit more into the mission, so that was a huge letdown to be unable to pass the second room of the longest level, and I was a bit in despair for this run, which was pretty much completely dead. Unless Harc suggested that I become a dead alive brute, which is completely absurd, but hey, dead brute is still brute, and it's better than nothing at all. So we do our first setup, but during execution, we kill the brute before letting the other player respawn, and when he respawns, he becomes the dead alive brute. While he can't move or shoot, the regular player can melee him through the entire level if we enable the Feather Skull. That's where the most fastidious step starts, bringing the cadaver to a long stroll all the way through the level. This also includes the prison, where we get our only checkpoint of the entire level. I enabled the Scarab Skull to be able to clear every zone more quickly. Notice that the cadaver can't use the elevator, so here I was forced to move forward to the next load zone to teleport it. And he did teleport! I kept moving forward, but the cadaver can't use the light bridges either. If you try it, it'll just fall all the way out of the map. But I knew I could teleport it after the next load zone. So I did until the Arbiter's mausoleum. And small step after small step, we painfully arrived at the end of the entire level as a dead alive brute. Okay, I admit, that was the opposite of fun. So for Uprising, we're gonna get a real live brute. We need Bandana, Boom, Feather, and Sputnik Skulls to help us get a nice grenade launch at the start to the door past the first area, and prevent the brutes from spawning. Some weapons are firing, but they're scripted, so we don't have to care for them. We use the brazier to pinch precisely here. The other player jumps off the cliff, then we restart, do the launch again, and the other player kills himself again, then we move back while melee jumping until the sword. There the brutes will spawn, and we let player 2 respawn, and he'll become a brute. Fun fact, brutes can't crouch apparently, so instead it makes a T-pose. We can also automatically trigger the raging animation, but the player will be stuck this way until he picks up his weapon on the ground. We can move into the level without any difficulty. But as many other enemies we possess, wherever you throw a grenade, it just falls right before you and kill you. This time we got lucky and it just launched a brute, but we didn't get as much luck the time after that. So anyway, we moved just a bit more carefully without grenades, and then we were able to grab ghosts. We wanted to try the Spectre and found that the brute can also T-pose while he's in the passenger seat, and we also laughed stupidly at that for a long time. But then we just kept going into the level. Sadly, the brute cannot pick up rocket launchers, but he can get shotgun and sniper rifles. The rest of the level is pretty straightforward. And this concludes Uprising. Here we go with the penultimate mission and another improbable setup. High Charity starts with enemies fighting, like Delta Halo and Gravemind, so we'll have to play the mission in heroic difficulty to let them kill each other quickly. We also enable Scarab and Envy to help us. We start the game and we wait. Actually, we have to wait for the Floods and Brutes to kill each other until no one shoots anymore. But most of the time, some enemies will spot you and start shooting. In those cases, you can't do much but end the game and go back to the main menu, restart, and hope you get a better seed. After quite a few trials, I got a seed where there was no one shooting at us and we only had to deal with a brute charging us, so we decided just to kill it with one Scarab shot. I then killed player 2 and let him respawn, because this time we'll do another pinching method. The advantage about this one is that we don't have to worry about how many shots are fired. We just need player 2 to trigger the next load zone, because if player 1 does it, it'll teleport player 2 and break our setup for some reason. As soon as player 1 is teleported, he continues through the level. Be careful not to overuse your Scarab gun and accidentally kill yourself. And he'll go up to the next loading trigger without hitting it. There you have to jump on the right side of the corridor right before the trigger and jump while you trigger it. It happens quickly, but if you look closely you see that this way, the game tried to teleport player 2 with player 1, but couldn't do it and despawned him. That's our almost pinch. So when this happens, we quickly restart the game, we wait again for the exact same outcome of the Brute vs Flood combat. As you see, our Brute does exactly the same thing, so we kill it the same way, and then we kill player 2, and when he respawns, he's a human Flood. This is the only way we've found yet to become a human Flood for now. Like the Elite Flood, it behaves quite weirdly. But the cool thing is that it can punch crates and debris when it passes by them. From there we can move forward into the level. Sadly, at the first load zone the game will despawn the Flood. Yet, it's most probably not a total run killer, because we could do the butterfly jump speedrunners do from the start platform to the end trigger. Let's finish this run in an epic way by becoming a hunter. We need to enable bandana, feather, and Sputnik skulls. And right at the start, player 1 will kill himself 3 times. Then shoot 11 plasma shots to create the right object offset. We then create our pinching spot by putting the Wraith against the door and the Spectre above it. Player 2 jumps off the cliff, and we restart. The next step is to go to that pine left of the door. We do a first grenade jump to land on top of it. It's actually easier than it looks. And then we have another grenade jump to do. It's actually a little bit harder. From the top of the tree to the top of the cliff. From there, we have to walk around the first area and go to the Scarab area without loading any enemies. We go back into the level before the Scarab. Be careful here because it's easy to die from fall damage. Once back into the level, a Phantom arrives. We hide from it and wait for it to go away. Then we enable our camo and move forward to the door without being seen. Before we get to the door, player 2 jumps off the ledge and player 1 will prevent him from respawning while moving closer to the door. It will preload the hunters inside, so when we let our teammate respawn, he'll be one. As a hunter, he can use the cannon or he can melee enemies, although there's no animation for it. Now we can walk through the mission pretty normally, but in a super classy way, because you know, hunter. So we can have 3 hunters before Johnson's cutscene. But at this precise cutscene, we feared the hunter would despawn. So we tried and the hunter was still there. So now the only thing we need to do is bring the hunter to Tartarus at the control room. No problem, the hunter jumps onto the sledge and the regular player will carry it on a banshee for a truly epic moment. Just look at that view. We land the hunter at the door and we clean up the raids so the scarab comes and opens the door. The hunter is so tanky he can start the scarab shots. So when we enter the room, we let him deal with the brutes. And so here's the last cutscene. And once again, our hunter doesn't despawn and is still there. So we can face Tartarus in a big boys duel. But as the hunter can't die from fall damage, he can also get to the very bottom of the room. Finally, we fought Tartarus. And with a little help, we completed a great journey being a hunter. What a rad way to finish that A.U.P run. So yeah, I confess, that's a bit of an incomplete run. We have to consider 2 things. The first thing is that this trick was discovered very recently, December of 2019, and some methods we showed are less than a month old at the time this video gets released. There's still much to try and much to discover and many more combos with other tricks to find out. The other thing is that we're the first ones to try to do this challenge. I'm certain that if other people try it, they'll find ways to complete Oracle and Quarantine Zone, and then the butterfly jump on Gravemind. Actually, at the time of recording this, that has been done. By the way, if you have any ideas for these, feel free to let us know or test them and we will update this run. Thank you for watching. This challenge required a lot of work and time. If you enjoyed this video and like to see others like it, feel free to subscribe, like this video, comment, or even better, come discuss it with us on our Discord server. I want to thank TekTek and Imlevelzer0 for doing this run with me and being my kind lab rats. I would also like to thank Harc the Shark for helping me so much. I wouldn't have come this far into the run without his precious help. Thanks again and see you soon. By the way, if I can shamelessly plug myself in here, I also want to say that the English recorder, the guy who's recording the audio, which is also me, that's the simplified version. Anyway, shout out to me as well for recording the audio. It only took me about a month to finish because of fucking school and some other stuff. I love you, TekTek. I love all the work you guys do. Halo Création, I actually really enjoy your stuff, and I actually really want to see this when this releases. Alright, peace out, guys. Here we go, again on our own. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong video.